So you guys have asked me to review more Japanese knives. Let's do it. Okay, so first off, I want to wish you guys a happy new year. And boy, is 2021 off to a wild start. I mean, holy smokes, it is off to a wild start. But we're not going to get into that today. I want to wish you guys great health and much prosperity. Okay, anyhow, let's go ahead and start talking about this knife. So the knife that we're going to be taking a look at today is one of the most recommended beginner's Japanese knife that, to my surprise, most people have not heard of. And it is the Tojiro DP. So quick disclaimer, I purchased this knife 100% with my own money. I don't have any kind of affiliations with Tojiro, although that would be pretty freaking sweet to be affiliated with Tojiro. Now, this is, as always, a first impression video straight out of the box, and we'll come back here in 6 months to see how this baby holds up. So some of you guys probably already recognize this gold packaging as soon as I pulled it out. And for those of you guys who don't and have not heard of Tojiro before, Tojiro is a Japanese knife company based out of Tsubami in the Niigata Prefecture. And in the Niigata Prefecture, Tsubami is famous for their metal products. So just a little fun fact and history for you. Now, it is also not surprising that you guys have not heard of Tojiro because this company actually doesn't spend a lot of money on marketing, advertising, and fancy packaging. As you can see here, this is not a super fancy packaging. And as we've talked about in the past, fancy packaging doesn't mean anything, right? Because it's the knife that counts, not the packaging. Because most of the time, the packaging goes straight into the trash. So a lot of us, like we have discussed in the comments and in the videos, that we would rather the company spend more money on the product than on the packaging itself. Because a fancy packaging doesn't make the product any better. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. If the product is bad, doesn't matter how nice the packaging is. So with all that said, the packaging is nice and simple. It's taped together by these golden tags. Cardboard box, as you guys can see. Knife. There's a little pamphlet in there. Probably some care and everyday maintenance information. Plastic knife sleeve to keep the knife from scratching up while it is being delivered or shipped. Alright, so let's run through the specs real quick. As you can see here, here's the knife. I'll get some more close-up shots so you guys can take a better look. This is the 210mm Gyuto, and in inches, it is roughly 8.5 inches long. And it is a Sanmai construction with a VG10 core and a 13 chrome stainless steel cladding. And it is a full tang construction, which leads down to this western handle, a black micarta handle held together by 3 stainless steel rivets. The edge itself is a 50-50 9 to 12 degree angle convex grind that is hardened to about 60 plus or minus 2 Rockwell hardness. Alright, so let's check for fit and finish real quick. Let's see. Blade is nice and straight. Some people's feedback on this knife is that the handle doesn't really match the quality of the blade itself, which this is a more budget-friendly model of the Tojiro lines. Tojiro definitely makes higher-end knives than this, but this is one of their entry-level knives. So to make it fair, we can't really compare the fit and finish of something like this to, let's say, a $150 to $200 knife. But as far as I can feel right now, the handle feels very comfortable, very ergonomic. I do feel like a very slight ridge from the bolster to the handle scales itself. It's catching on my nail. I mean, you can't see it with just the naked eye. If you just looked at it, you won't be able to tell. But it just catches very slightly on my fingernail. And but it wouldn't bother you when you're just holding it in your hand. Like, it's barely noticeable. But if you have to nitpick something, then that's just a little something that you can nitpick on the handle. But nothing that really bothers me. Now, the finish of the knife itself is very nicely done. The sanding and the polishing, as you can see, especially on the edge, you can see that the edge is very nicely polished. Now, one thing I do have to mention, for most Japanese knives, you will rarely find a crown spine or rounded choils, because It's just not very common, especially for the spine, because pinch grip, most of the time, you see it on Western knives. A lot of times when I see people using Japanese knives, they use this grip. This is called, I think they call this a precision grip. If you guys call it something different, I would love to hear you guys comment down below. Let me know what this grip is called, but I see a lot of Japanese chefs and cooks use this grip right here, which is kind of nice. I'm going to have to try this grip too. Next thing we want to cover is the profile geometry. As you can see here, this is kind of, has a very similar profile in honesty to the Misen. It has a slight belly to it. It's not as flat as most Gyutos would be, but it is also not as pronounced of a belly as like Wurstoff or Zwilling and things like that. Now the next thing we want to look at is the balance point of the knife. So the balance point of the knife is right here, right at the bolster. Alright, now before we get into the cut test, let's talk about why this knife is considered one of the most recommended Japanese knives to beginners. Well, it's because it has a low barrier to entry. What I mean by low barrier to entry is the price point of the knife. This knife retails for under $100. I mean, with shipping and tax and things like that, I paid about $80 for this knife. And for $80, I understand for some people it's still a lot of money, but for a true Japanese knife, it's, I would consider that the entry level price range for a nice Japanese knife. And for $80, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck for this particular knife. You're getting a true VG10 steel and a completely manufactured in Japan knife that is by a very reputable company. So for $80, I think this is a fantastic knife to start your Japanese knife journey. Let's get cutting. The test we're going to do is the paper test. As you can see, holy smokes, this thing is sharp. Very, very sharp straight out of the box, which I had no doubt because I've heard nothing but great things about this knife. Now I'm going to try this test right here. I've never tried this before. Let's see if we can get it to... Woo! Look at that, guys. Now that is freaking sharp. So the next thing, of course, we'll have the tomato test, as always. Let's see if I can get this sucker to stick. There we go. But as you can see, I mean, the knife is super sharp. And as you guys know, I love using a carrot because I just think a carrot is a great way to feel whether or not the knife is sharp. Cutting through with no issue. Now, one thing I do want to mention, if you guys like to rock cut, maybe Japanese style knives are not for you because Japanese knives have a flatter belly profile and it is more suited for, you know, push cuts and things like that. So that's definitely something I want to mention to you guys before you jump in going, oh, well, why can't I rock really well with these knives? Because these knives aren't designed to do a lot of the rocking motion. It's not that you can't do it with it, it's just that it's more efficient doing like the push cuts. Man, it just glides through this carrot. This knife, it's very thin, so it just glides right through this carrot. I'll show you a different angle on this so that way you guys can see just how thin this knife is. I'm really, really impressed with this right now. Like, no wonder so many people actually recommend this knife to people. This is actually one of the knives that most people recommend for a lot of culinary students that just graduated. Like, it's as one of their first serious knife, or one of their first Japanese style knives. Man, this knife cuts really good. So I can totally see this becoming a daily workhorse, no questions asked. Man, that's nice. Alright, so as you can see in the cut test, this knife came out super sharp out of the box. I am thoroughly impressed, especially for first impression, straight out of the box. I am very impressed with how this knife is performing so far. Very thin blade. This geometry of the edge is fantastic. I mean, it just blew through that carrot. As I'm using this knife, I did realize and notice a spot that is a little bit more rough. It's right here under the choil. I'll get a close-up shot so you guys can see. You can still see some of the grind lines, and it's just not very polished or sanded very well, which can be easily fixed. But it is harsher on the hands. Like, my first impression of this knife, I am thoroughly impressed. And this pretty much wraps up our first video of 2021, our first impression of the Tojiro DP. And we'll come back here in 6 months to see how this baby holds up. And like I said before, I wish you guys a very happy new year. Wish you guys all the good health, all of the prosperity. And if you guys like this video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It will mean the world to me. It'll help me support all this madness. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.